Hello there. I want to talk about common pitfalls that limit people's progress. And this is what I see a lot of people fall into and have seen over the years. And I don't want you to do that. I want to make sure you can be as successful as you possibly can because you're here, you're putting in the effort. Let's make the most of it. So I'm going to chat about what can limit your progress, consistency, progression, things that will help you, and then specific action steps you can take. All right. So the biggest thing that can limit your progress is consistency. And under that consistency umbrella, there are a number of things we're going to chat about. So we need to be doing things regularly for quite a while to reasonably expect a significant change. So expectations or unrealistic expectations can affect our consistency because we expect one thing, we don't get it, and then we stop doing what we're doing, or we just jump around to something else because we think it's going to work. And one of those unrealistic expectations is that progress is linear when it's actually not. So you may know this, but experiencing it is different. So if you have some quality that you have not trained much, like mobility, strength, power, etc., and you start working on it regularly, you might see pretty significant changes early on, and then it'll start to plateau. You'll start hitting some resistance, and that can be really frustrating. That's when a lot of people fall off. They stop or they jump around to something else. So your progress is not going to be linear, and that's totally okay. You might even plateau for a while, and then boom, you notice some progress. Another unrealistic expectation is perfection. You're not going to be able to follow the program or any program or habits you set out for yourself perfectly. That's totally okay. I like imperfect consistency. The more rigid it is, the more likely you are to fall off if you start to be inconsistent based on your own standards. So perfection is not the goal. Now, what follows some of this and the lack of linear progress is reactivity to changes. So especially short-term changes. A lot of people will experience short-term pain or discomfort or soreness, and they'll get reactive to it and they'll want to stop doing everything they're doing. Or they'll go, this isn't working, something's wrong, and things will end up snowballing. Additionally, there can be short-term positives in progress. You might start doing cars and feel like way better after a week. Now, that's great, and I love that, and I want you to reinforce that. But what can happen is we can make neurological changes pretty quickly, but that doesn't mean they're lasting. So you're not going to change the physiology of your joint in a week. You might help it feel a lot better. And again, that's wonderful. I think we should celebrate that. But in order to make meaningful changes, we need to continue to reinforce the things that are helping us feel better long enough for those changes and that adaptation to really take place. Now, another thing that can affect consistency, of course, is habits. If we have good habits that are reasonable, that we can be successful with, that can help our consistency. If we try to adopt habits that are so far away from our baseline, it can be really hard to be consistent with them. So I have a good, great, best approach, which kind of governs a little bit of how I created the program. And if you watch the program overview video, you'll see this where we have things that you can do. It's color coded. If you're having like a not great day, or you can do more if you're having a pretty good day, and you can do all of it if you're having a great day with tons of energy. So it's helpful to lay out habits that you know you can do. So on a daily basis or weekly basis, what are things you are like 98% confident you can do no matter what? That's a great place to start. It's also why with the program, I suggest starting with just like the body maintenance and mobility master workouts, because I don't want you to worry about trying to add so many things to your weekly schedule all at once. You can click this link. It'll take you to the Good, Great, Best Approach video. But something that affects your habits and consistency is your environment. So your work in your living space, where you pay attention to things online, that is part of your environment, your partner, roommate, friend, etc., the people you spend time with. This all can affect your habits, your ability to stay consistent, because if none of this supports your goals and what you want to be doing regularly, that makes it really hard. If you want to be active and you spend most of your time around people who are sedentary, that's just going to make it more difficult. If you're around partners and friends who maybe don't do what you want to do, but they're supportive of it, that's going to help. And if you're around people who are very like-minded, have similar goals, or are doing things you want to be doing, that can help a ton. And then again, like online attention, where you spend your time and energy can really affect your ability to have good habits. So, really clear example, if you're trying to eat more healthy, and you have junk food in the house, just putting it out of sight and a little bit harder to get to on the top shelf, that alone just increases the friction to get that food. So, really clear example of how environment can help shape our habits and our consistency. Now, buy-in and belief play a big role. This is also why I try to educate as much as I can within this membership, because if you don't really believe in what you're doing and you don't have full buy-in, you're just not going to be as consistent. And the habits you're forming are going to be much more fragile because as soon as there's an obstacle, you're gonna be like, whatever, nah. But when I can educate people and share with them why they're doing what they're doing, enough that at least you can feel some of the differences early on, then you have more buy-in, you have more conviction, and you're going to stick with it much more. Boredom is a big one too. So some of the stuff we're doing is not the most exciting. I find it exciting, but I'm a little bit of a weirdo. But what's exciting is the progress over time or expecting the progress over time. But being bored, obviously, there are things we can do to combat that. So, one of the things is because we want to be doing things consistently. We don't want to be jumping all over the place in our training, or we're not sticking with anything enough to see adaptation. But one thing you can do is you can change up your warm up, you can change up your cool down a little bit. You can go and do activities outside of your training that are a little more fun. I do things like self fetch instead of just running sprints. So things that can accomplish similar goals and help you work towards your goals, but are different enough that you don't get quite as bored. There's going to be a little boredom, and that is totally okay. But we can do things to counteract that a little bit. So you can get creative, change your environment, work out with someone else, change the music, whatever. But recognize that like boredom is going to happen in a good training program because you're going to be doing similar things over and over and over. Huge one, indecision and or lack of direction on how to adjust. So a lot of times when people are following programs or doing something and they either have pain or an inability to do something, they do adjust an exercise or a workout, they don't know what to do, so they just stop. They just don't do it at all. They just avoid. And it's a very normal, natural human thing. That's why we have this community and you have access to me so that you can ask for help and you don't have to run into this obstacle by yourself. You get to consult with someone, consult with the community. So this is huge. This is a massive, massive obstacle gets in the way of people's progress. Another thing that will limit your progress is lack of progression or improper, inappropriate progression, right? So things do need to change or progress over time for you to progress, right? And like that seems very obvious, and yet a lot of people will do like the same things over and over and over for months and years, not make progress, and kind of wonder why, right? Then there's the opposite problem of people making really big changes in short periods of time. So we also don't want that. I remember a client coming into the gym and he wanted to go from being completely sedentary, no exercise whatsoever, to 5 hour long training sessions per week. That is way, way too much. There's almost no way that can go well, right? So we want to be mindful of the volume and the intensity and the type of exercise that we're making changes with. So typically, like you don't want to increase the volume or the intensity of exercise more than about 10 to 15% per week. Now, of course, as seasons change, you get into the season, you go into the off season, things can change and you might be more than that, but just think of that 10 to 15% as like a baseline and try not to stray too far away from that. Another thing is like the type of exercise. If you have not been doing any jumping and you go and you do a like massive jumping session, you're probably going to be really sore. You might get some pain or injure yourself. So we want to be mindful that while we do want progressions over time, you're better off making them really small and gradual at first and just see how you respond to those. Another big problem with progression is people just having, inaccurate perceptions of their own progress. So I've worked with clients for years, and I often have them say, like, I feel like nothing's really improved. I just don't know. And then I'll ask, like, well, how's your knee been feeling? And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't even thought about my knee for like 3 or 4 months. And I'm like, well, you came in here limping and unable to like walk well or run or jump, and now you can do all those things. So this happens all the time. I've done it myself. And it's really natural for this to happen. But it's helpful to write down and share our progress, maybe in a journal or in this community. It's helpful to take video of what you've been doing, what you've been able to do, to write down your goals. because then you can look back and you have something that's a little bit more objective, or someone else can show you like, hey, you actually have been making progress. Because more often than not, if you're consistent for a while, there will be progress. Maybe it's not exactly what you wanted, but if you ever feel like I'm not making any progress, it's a good idea to look back and see what measures you can look at that are a little bit more objective than just your memory. Okay, so what will help you? This is, you've gotten a sense of this, so I'll roll through this pretty quickly. The opposite of some of the stuff we talked about. Be realistic about the things that you can do, especially as it relates to the commitment that you're willing to put in. So if you're like, I'm going to work out once a week for a half hour, cool, that's great. Great place to start. You may not make massive changes. So just look at your commitment, what you're doing, and how that is different from your previous baseline, and then think, what is a realistic goal for what I'm doing? So another thing is be patient but not complacent. So we do need to be consistent. There's going to be some redundancy. Progress might be slow. It's not going to be linear. However, if you continue doing the same thing and you're not seeing any progress for a while, that's when we don't want to be complacent. We want to look to change some things. You can reach out to me. You can ask how you can adjust. And then commit. If you are following a program, you're going to follow it. Commit, go all in, give it an honest effort, and really believe it will work. If you go in with like a half-ass effort, being like, the second this doesn't feel great, I'm just done with it, you're not going to give it as much opportunity for success. Okay, you're not going to give yourself as much opportunities for success. All right. And related to that, be okay with some redundancy and look for fun opportunities. Right. So there's going to be redundancy. You might be a little bored here, but I want you to look for opportunities to spice things up a little bit, change it up. There's a lot of exercises, and you can vary them enough that it's still working towards your goal, but it's different. It's a different feel. So like a trap bar deadlift versus a barbell deadlift, something as simple as that, a very similar exercise. It'll feel a little bit different. Maybe one even just feels better for you and you like more. That's a great reason to change the exercise. Okay. And then finally, make gradual changes over time, especially with high impact or weighted exercises. With the mobility type training, even when we get pretty intense, I find that the soreness and the risk of pain or injury is much, much lower than doing things like jumping, sprinting, or like heavy resistance weight training. Okay, so be very mindful with that. Now, specific action steps, things I would love for you to do. Write down your goals and how you're going to get there. Here's my goal. Here are the things I'm going to do daily, weekly to get myself to that goal. Include a time frame for your goal. That can be very helpful. And share it in the group. I'd love to hear what you're working on and be able to provide feedback. And we might have some other members who can provide feedback too, because we have a lot of people who have gone through this program before. Okay. Speaking of, follow the Ultimate Mobility Program. If you're in the membership, you're not following the program, try it out. It's 20 weeks. We have gradual progression. We have, like I talked about, built-in ways we can adjust the volume within each session. And then ask me in the community questions. So if you run into any roadblocks, if you're ever not sure, or you even just have some decision fatigue, like what should I do? Just ask me, ask the community. I am happy to help. That's why we are here. That's why I want this to be a really helpful, supportive community. Okay. And then if you ever start to feel discouraged, even after like talking to me or the community, rewatch this video. Okay. It'll help. Even just making this helps me. So let's get after it. I hope to hear from you soon and let me know if this was helpful.